Welcome to The Bottom Line with John Harrison, your tour guide through all things financial. Build out your financial skill set with crucial knowledge and tactics and easy to follow answers to all your essential money questions. And now, your host, certified financial planner, ordained minister, multi-published author, and president of Aspire Financial Advisors, John Harrison.
Hello, and welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm John F. Harrison, your host. And in this episode, we're going to talk about how to think your way through financial challenges. Just like the Bible says that the battle is not always to the strong, the race is not always to the swift. Financial victory is not always to those with the highest incomes, but rather it tends to go to those who can creatively think their way through the challenges that they face. You may have seen that little puzzle. It's been around for a lot of years, and it consists of 9 dots arranged in a grid, and I'm going to put that up on the screen now. And your challenge in looking at these dots is to connect them all using only 4 straight lines. The rules are you can't lift your pencil, you can't retrace your steps, and you can use 4 straight lines to connect all 9 dots. And that's really it. Now, if you want to pause for a second while you think about this, that's quite all right. And I'll talk you through the solution now and show you what it looks like. And you'll shake your head and maybe laugh because you'll remember this once you see it. But now let's look at the solution. And the solution is to start at a corner. You can start at any corner, but I've started at the lower right. Go diagonally to the opposite corner, come straight across, well past the dot, and then straight down through the other 2 and up the other side. There's 4 straight lines that connect all 9 dots. Now, a lot of people, when they see the solution, they say, wait a minute, I didn't know you were allowed to go outside the box. And of course, it's an exercise in thinking outside the box, but I'd like to take it a step further and suggest to you that the problem with our perception is that there is no box. If you look up the word box in the dictionary, you will not see a picture of 9 dots. There is no box in that exam, and the ability to perceive things differently than we do instinctively is a great skill to contemplate and develop. So one of the thorniest challenges we face financially is the price of housing. And when we come back, we're going to take a there is no box look at solutions to that problem. Stay tuned. We're going to take care of a little business and be right back after this.
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Welcome back. We're talking about problem solving, and we're not only teaching about the value of thinking outside the box, we're suggesting there is no box, and that the best thing we can do for ourselves when faced with a problem is to liberate our thinking. Now, I know that that test is a little on the silly side, but it deals with a very serious topic. The assumptions that we make are the primary impediment to thinking our way creatively through a problem. So be open to discarding your assumptions. Be open to new ways of seeing a problem. Take housing. Let's say you're a renter trying to become an owner. And I'm going to use some examples and some numbers from here in Massachusetts. And although they'll vary depending on where you're watching this from, the essential shape of the problem is the same. So in Massachusetts, you're a renter. The median rent for a 2-bedroom apartment, according to Zillow, is $2,500 a month. That's statewide. It's much higher if you're in the city. In fact, the last number I saw said that in the city of Boston, a 1-bedroom apartment has a median rental price of $2,400 a month. But let's use the state for our example. So 2-bedroom, $2,500 a month is the median rent in the state of Massachusetts. The problem is the median income in the state of Massachusetts was $84,385 as of last month. So median rent is 35% of median income. That means the median earner is rent burdened. The technical definition of being rent burdened is if you're spending 30% or more of your income on rent. And so the median earner who rents the median 2-bedroom apartment in this state is spending 35% of his income on that rent. So being rent burdened makes it harder for you to save to buy a house. Remember, our scenario is that you're a renter who wants to become an owner. And so it's a challenge, but it gets even tougher. The median house price in Massachusetts is $585,000 as of last month, according to Redfin. Now, I ran the numbers on a house slightly cheaper than the median, just so you can see how that would compare to renting. I ran the numbers on a house I found for sale that's $569,900 is the sale price of this house. If you put the standard 20% down, you need to come up with $113,980 as a down payment. That's a little tough, especially if you're rent burdened. But someone may object and say, wait a minute, I don't have to put 20% down. There are all sorts of programs that will let me put down as little as 3 or 3.5%. And if I'm a veteran, I can actually do a 0% down loan. Most people will have to put down something, and if you put down less than 20, then you're going to have to add to your monthly payment the cost of PMI, and your amount of principal that you finance will be larger. So in order to keep our payments down, we're going to go with the 20% down in this example. So you put $113,000 down, and at 7.255%, which is a current rate for a mortgage. That's a whole lot higher than it was 2 years ago. But that gives you on this particular house principal, interest, taxes, and insurance of $3,934 per month. And the particular unit that I was looking at in our example happened to be a condo. So there were condo fees on top of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Condo fees were $521, which brought the total monthly payment to $4,445 per month, which is 63% of the income of our median earner. So that's out of reach. And the problem we have, not just here in Massachusetts, which is one of those states with very high real estate prices, Massachusetts, California, Hawaii, New Jersey, to an extent Connecticut. Some of these places have very high real estate prices. But no matter where you live, there is now no longer a state in the country where the median earner can afford the median house. That's kind of a problem. So what can you do? Well, you could complain and lament, but as somebody pointed out to me earlier today, if you complain, nobody cares anyway. So it doesn't help the situation. You can become an activist and demand that society give you the house you want because housing is a right and all that kind of stuff. Or you can think outside the box you can decide there isn't a box and come up with creative ways to get around the problem of savings. You know that when you buy a house, the majority of the expense is often the land the house sits on. Land appreciates. The building actually does not. But it's getting the land that the house sits on that costs so much. That's why a house that sits oceanfront will cost so much more than the identical house that sits in a suburb in the interior of the state. The house is the same. Its building materials are the same. It costs the same, but the land is different. The location is different. And so the land is what drives the price. So I ran across something recently that I thought was pretty fascinating. Do you know that there are towns that are giving away land for you to build a house on? Yes, you heard that right. There are towns in America that are giving you free land with the condition being that you build a house on it and live there. Free land can be a great solution to some of the numbers of the housing problem. I'm going to give you 10 in a list. You don't have to, you can rewind and replay, so you don't have to write fast to get all these down. But I'm telling you the specific towns that I ran across, and there are other ones, so that you can later go onto those town websites and see the details of each program. And they do differ a little bit program to program. But the towns that I'm highlighting today are Curtis, Nebraska, La Villa, Texas, Lincoln, Kansas, Loop City, Nebraska, Mankato, Kansas, maybe it's Mankato, I don't know how they say it, New Richland, Minnesota, Claremont, Minnesota, Elwood, Nebraska, Plainville, Kansas, and Flagler, Colorado. Why would towns give you free land or free building lots in order to build a house? Well, because the towns have a problem. Every one of the towns that I just mentioned are small towns, low population, and they've been losing people. Losing people means losing their tax base, and they need to attract people to their town. So one of the ways they're doing it is by offering you free land in exchange for you building a house and moving there. Now, is there a downside to this? Of course there is. If these were really happening places, they wouldn't have to induce you to move there by giving you free land. People would be beating down the doors already and driving the prices up. Instead, the opposite's happening. People have been leaving, driving the prices down, and they want people to come. So they're like, you know what? We're going to give you the land to build on if you'll just come and build and live here. That could be attractive to the right person. Now you may say, but I live in a city. I'm not sure I want to live in the booties. Well, it depends. Are you by chance a remote worker? You can live and work any place that has cell phone service and fast internet. So some of these things might be just the trick for you. I'm going to say just a bit more about this and understand that I'm not presenting this as the solution to everything or for everybody. I am suggesting it's something different when you feel stuck. I want to stop renting, I want to buy, but the numbers don't work for me. I don't see how they're ever going to work. Here's an example of there is no box. You can get some free land and you have, depending on the town, from 2 to 5 years to build what you want on it. We'll have more to say on this and then see how that moves into other areas, the concept of there is no box, when we come back from this quick commercial break. See you on the other side.
Do you want to make a bold statement? Do you want to stand out in the room? Check in with us before you step out. On-demand designs and timeless statement pieces are here to channel your impeccable style from this season to the next. You can have it all, so go get it and be confident when you do. Jewels on Demand, inspiring elegance and confidence.
Greetings, welcome back. We have been talking about the fact that there is no box, and we have been using as an example an interesting and odd solution to the I'm a renter, I want to be an owner, and I just can't make the numbers work. Maybe something like this, where the land you build on is absolutely free to you, would make it so that you could afford to build a house. And you'd be building it in an area where the cost of living in general is lower. This might be ideal for retired people who would like someplace quiet and maybe a little slow moving to go. It might be great for working age people who are remote workers and can work from anywhere as long as they've got a phone and an internet connection. Something to consider. The way you'd start this is to just pull up a search engine, use Google or something, and do a search on where to find free land in the USA. And that will give you a fairly lengthy list of places that do this all over the country. Again, usually not in the most happening of spots, not in the most high demand of spots, but maybe it's a place with a pretty view and it's not that far from a major city, and it might be a place you'd like to live. So I've highlighted 10 here, and again, the downside is these aren't places that people are beating down the doors to move, or they wouldn't have to give you free land to get you to go there. And that's a rule, a principle of the free enterprise system, is that everything is driven by supply and demand. So the rule is if somebody has to pay you to do something, doing that something might not be all that attractive to most people. Example, how many people would be buying battery electric vehicles if the government wasn't paying you in massive tax credits to buy one? Some people can get both the federal and a state tax credit depending on where they live. So there's the incentive saying, please do this, we'll give you money to do it. It might make you think about whether that's something you want to do in the long run, particularly when the incentives to do it are no longer there. But perhaps for you, it's the perfect thing and the incentive is just gravy. So use that way of getting rid of your assumptions, getting rid of your perceptions, and brainstorming any and everything that might solve a particular problem you have. I'm going to bring this thought back from time to time in one episode or another, and the shorthand will simply be there is no box, and it will be some unusual solution to some particular problem. It'll be a short segment, maybe 5 minutes in total. We went longer today to really break down the idea and show you how this particular example of it worked. But once you get used to thinking that way, you can even apply that to the way that you think about the news. Most people think about the financial news as in a little vacuum, and not so much as to how they can use the news to profit themselves or to at least prepare for what's coming. Example, a story in the financial press recently that I saw is that bank regulators are considering making large banks increase their capital. They're raising the capital requirements for large banks. This will tend to put a squeeze on banks' willingness to lend, the fact that they have to keep more money on hand, and that in itself can be a drag on the economy. Well, banks are already facing, let's call it, challenges on multiple fronts. One is higher interest rates. Interest rates have skyrocketed over the last year or so. We've all seen it. We're living through it. We've seen what it's done to things like credit card rates and mortgage rates and auto loan rates. Any way that you're borrowing money, it's gotten more expensive. The higher rates put pressure on banks. And the rate hikes may not be done The Fed has signaled that they're looking at pausing a bit in their rate hike campaign to see what the lag effect of it is. But they and many of the big banks are predicting that rates will still have to go higher than they are now. So that's going to put pressure on consumers who will then presumably spend less. It will also put pressure on banks who will presumably lend less. The next issue that the banks have is the commercial real estate crisis. I mentioned that in a recent episode. I won't rehash it in great detail here, but understand that in many major cities, the office vacancy rate in those downtown office towers is often as high as 30%. And those buildings are financed by mortgages that will have to be renewed soon. They'll have to be renewed at higher interest rates than they were originally taken out at. There may be quite a few defaults that will crash the property values, that lowers the tax revenue for municipalities. All of these things are indicators of potential recession ahead because of all the when the banks clam up on lending, when they circle the wagons and tighten credit standards, then that slows the economy for everybody. It makes it harder for small businesses to operate, and so on and so forth. So you might look at that and say, all right, I need to be really careful, and with all these risks on the horizon, maybe I'm going to pull in my reins and not invest and not sock away money for the future because I'm feeling pessimistic about what's coming. But an outside the box way of looking at that, or to rephrase it, there really isn't a box way of looking at that, is to say, wait a minute, there's always a challenge coming. It's hyperinflation, or it's recession, or it's a problem in the banking industry, or it's a commercial real estate crash, or it's a residential real estate crash, or it's layoffs, and you can list 75 things that always might be coming in the near future, might mess up the economy, and therefore mess up the investment markets. And if you're like most people, your biggest temptation will be to wait and look for a time that feels like the ideal time to invest. And that never works. There's always another problem on the horizon, and it never looks like a good time to invest. But you know what doesn't change? Your time horizon. You will still reach the age of 67 on a certain date. You will still reach the age of 70 on a certain date. And on certain dates, you're going to need to sign up for Medicare, and you're going to retire or be perhaps shown the door at your employer, and you will need to live on your accumulated savings and investments along with Social Security or perhaps a state retirement plan, depending on who your employer is. The timeline doesn't change. It gets one day closer every day. And if you're waiting to start preparing for those things because you're waiting for an ideal time to invest, you're thinking way inside the imaginary box. You need to decide, you know what, come what may, if I do the things that need to get done, in the long run, I'll be better off than if I don't do them because I'm waiting for an ideal time. I'm waiting when it looks like a good time to invest. It never looks like a good time to invest. Most people don't think that way, and that's a great reason that you probably should. In fact, history has shown that the best times to invest have traditionally been when most people are feeling the most pessimistic about it. When people are convinced that, oh no, it's gloom and doom and it's never going to get better, when people are fleeing the market in droves, that's usually the best time to get in. Most people do the opposite. They wait till everybody and their barber seems like they're making a fortune and things have done so well for so long, they jump in for fear of missing out. And the market turns just after they do that, and it starts to head down, and maybe it heads down very sharply, and they end up bailing out, thus having bought high and sold low. You want to buy low and sell high. So when everybody else is bailing, that's when you want to, because you realize there's not a box, I don't have to think like everybody else. You want to be buying when everybody else is eagerly, desperately selling. So when sentiment is worst, the Wall Street Journal reported yesterday that the sentiment among hedge fund managers is as bearish as it has ever been since 2008. And so the professional money is thinking things are about to go down. And they have reasons for that. You know, the market hasn't done terribly this year. The S&P 500 is up about 12% year to date through yesterday, but it's a pretty thin bull market. There are 500 stocks in the S&P 500, and that 12% gain is due entirely to 7 of those 500. They're mostly in the tech space. There's 7 stocks, and they're carrying the whole thing. So while the smart money is feeling bearish for reasons like that, maybe the wise money is thinking, I'm not going to go with sentiment. I'm going to go with the fact that the time to buy is when everybody else is feeling bad, so I catch the whole of the next bull run. Something to think about outside the non-existent box. Hey, we're running out of time. We've got one more break to take, and when we come back, we'll wrap it up and put a bow on it. Stay tuned. I'll talk to you in a minute.
The Well Jamaican Restaurant, located at 55 Mazio Drive in Randolph, Mass., where good food and fellowship meet daily. Check out our variety of fresh and tasty entrees and sides from our menu or the website, thewellja.com, like our jerk chicken, oxtails and rice, seafood, desserts, and more. With our drinks and juices made fresh daily, you have the option to dine in or take out. We can also cater your special event, or you can book our private dining room and let us host your special event. At the Well Jamaican Restaurant, we pride ourselves on providing superior quality food and beverages, and of course, great customer service. Next time you're in the mood for Jamaican cuisine, meet us at the Well Jamaican Restaurant. Become part of the family. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. The Well, where good food and fellowship meet daily.
Well, as we bring another episode to a close, I want to give you a little preview of what's coming next. Next episode, we'll be talking about unusual investments for unusual times. We're going to look at specific investments that you may be less familiar with. Most of us know the straightforward stocks, bonds, real estate, cash, maybe precious metals. There are all sorts of specialized investments that may make sense as part of your portfolio to help you navigate your way through all the uncertainties that we always talk about here. So be sure to tune in for our next episode when we give you the scoop on things you don't always hear about. Specialized investments, unusual investments for unusual times. And if you want to get the jump on hearing about some of those things, why not reach out to us directly? You can call me at Aspire Financial Advisors. The number's on the screen, 978-775-5435, or reach out by email, john.harrison@aspirefa.com. I would always be happy to entertain your questions as well as your suggestions for things you'd like to hear covered on this show. So that's going to do it for this episode, but I'll leave you with the same reminder I always do. Getting from where you are to where you want to be financially can be an arduous journey, but be encouraged. You can get there from here. All you need is a little direction for the journey, and that's the bottom line.